Hello there, everyone. Today I will be doing a rhetorical analysis based on my essay entitled The Virginia Tech Support Ribbon, Elegance Amid Tragedy. So, basically I can imagine very few things that would be more terrifying than having a student gunman kill a bunch of your classmates. And in the case of the Virginia Tech, it was so unexpected that essentially the biggest question that was on people's minds afterward was, why? Why did he do this? Why my classmates and not me? Why didn't someone notice he was on the edge all along? Why didn't we have metal detectors on the doors? And so on. And I believe it's for this reason. It's for the reason that no one had any real answers that this ribbon works so well. Essentially, I have three main points, and that is that it works well because, number one, it doesn't point any fingers. Number two, it doesn't call anyone to action. And number three, it doesn't make any specific claims. It just asks what's next, and then it reflects all the questions that were on the minds of the students at the time and the faculty at the time. So, how does it convey the enormity of the tragedy? Well, in this case, there's no need to prove anything because most people reading the newspaper, since it's a campus paper, they were at the scene or nearby when the tragedy occurred, so they already understand the gravity of it. So let's examine the first point, that is, how the visual doesn't throw around accusations. So, guilt is everywhere after something like this happens, and, for example, police wished they'd arrived on the scene faster, classmates wished they'd informed security more about the killer's unusual behavior in the weeks and months before the attack. Maybe even students with concealed carry permits wished they'd been armed so they could have saved the day, as people often said after the tragedy. Perhaps even construction workers wished they'd put stronger locks on the door, as I included in my essay. But basically, playing the blame game is useless because no one expected this tragedy to occur, especially on this campus, which, from what I've read, was and is still very safe and quiet. So secondly, it doesn't call anybody to action. It's often said that the worst thing to do after a disaster is to politicize it, that is, use it for political gain. Unfortunately, people do it anyway. So I would have expected this issue of the Collegiate Times, I would have expected for it to have featured a lengthy rant about, for example, how high-capacity magazines are a public danger and how the world would be a safer place if we were all limited to good old-fashioned six-shot revolvers. Yet the ribbon made no such arguments. I would have expected it to criticize those who interpret the Second Amendment to mean we have a right to own any gun at any time, anywhere, for any reason. Still, it didn't make any of these arguments. I would have even thought it might have urged people to petition their local governments for changes in gun laws. It didn't do any of that either. It chose to not politicize it, even as mainstream media descended into all the name calling and, as I say, partisan bickering. So why didn't it do this? I believe that the journalists at the Collegiate Times chose not to politicize it because at this moment none of it mattered. As I said in my essay, grief was the only reality, and questions were the only thing on people's minds. Also, the ribbon doesn't make any specific claims. Doctors could have claimed this wouldn't have happened if the killer had, say, been on different medication. Psychologists could have attributed his actions to the childhood trauma of emigrating from another country. Students could have spoken out about how he just didn't fit in, and so on. In the end, though, no one could have proven anything for certain. Therefore, it was best to leave such things alone. So how does the ribbon appeal visually to its audience? Well, first of all, it's very aesthetically pleasing. The questions are perfectly aligned, and the ribbon's shape immediately notifies people that it is a tribute of some sort, such as support our troops, breast cancer awareness, and the others that we commonly see. Also, I noticed it consists of a simple Times New Roman text on a plain white background. I believe this suggests, perhaps at a subliminal level, that everything previously important on campus had been wiped away, leaving students and faculty to ponder very basic questions about human life, morality, and community. The fact that it covers the entire page, this ribbon, also works well to convey the enormity of the tragedy, because it is the only thing that is on people's minds, or was on people's minds at the moment. What other visual choices might have created ethical dilemmas for student journalists? Quite simply, I believe every other possible choice would have created problems. For example, no one in their right mind would have included pictures of, say, previous school shooters in an effort to compare them, which I believe some newspapers actually did. Listing the names of the deceased students would have been a bad choice as well, because people are typically in shock after such events, and they don't want to accept the fact that their friends and family are dead, so it's best not to keep driving it home like that. This may have been appropriate after some time had passed, but not at this point. I also believe journalists may have been tempted to report on the history and family life of the shooter himself in this issue of the Collegiate Times, but this would have raised even more serious dilemmas. For example, they would have had to ask themselves questions like, what if his relatives wanted to maintain their anonymity? What if their jobs and social statuses were compromised? What if being exposed would compromise their safety in one way or another? For example, what if a student that wanted revenge would harm them because of their association to the gunman? Questions like that. So all in all, I cannot imagine a more eye-catching, elegant, and respectful way of honoring the deceased students and faculty more than this support ribbon. If I were to sum up its appeal in just a few words, I would say it's amazingly simple, yet strikingly complex. The huge letters of the heading, "What's Next?" beckon readers to take a closer glance. And once they realize the ribbon is full of questions, they're guaranteed to be hooked and want to see more of it, see more of the ribbon. Moreover, it appeals to everyone. It does not, as I mentioned earlier, point fingers, call anyone to action, or make any claims. It merely puts onto paper the questions that were on everyone's mind at the moment. Thank you very much.